Hello, welcome again to my channel. My name is Jeremy Lee. Every week I'm making a new videos about history topics. If you are a student in school or you're just interested about history subject, then this channel might be for you. And today we are going to talk about, finally, we're going to talk about the ancient Egypt. Yes. Now, there's something that fascinates us. There's something that attracts us about Egypt. The mummy movies, the great giant pyramids, the mysterious yet beautiful alphabet, the hidden treasures, the adventures of finding like the lost mummy or the lost tomb. If you're thinking like the pyramid are the ancient alien technology that being given to humans, no, it's not, okay? Pyramid is not a spaceship. No, and the mummy will not going to come back to life and then like starting to chasing people. Well, actually, they will come back to life, but not in the way that the Hollywood movie made it, or just like what you're thinking. Now, we're going to talk about the mummy somewhere in the future. So, Egypt is the most advanced ancient civilizations. They made several important innovations and inventions, like in medical, cosmetics, architectures, astronomy, farming, and also science. And my favorite, the writing system, and then the hieroglyphic alphabets that using pictures as their alphabet. As a Christians, why we have to study about Egyptian history? Well, several reasons. Reason number one is by learning about the history and also the civilization, we know the backdrop or the world that become the background of the first 5 books in the Bible, which is Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and Numbers. Because when these books are written, there are several things being borrowed from the Egyptian culture. The second reason, the ancient Egypt is the longest civilizations ever exist. It lasted for about 3,000 years. 3,000 years! Think about it, 3,000 years. That's a long period of time. And then it's so long, the historian must divide the history of Egypt into several parts. Into the Old Kingdoms, Middle Kingdoms, and also the New Kingdoms period. And then somewhere in between each are the intermediate period. Last but not least, the reason like why we study about Egyptian history is to entice you, to encourage you to study further about Egypt. I'm just going to give you a tiny introductions of it, but then again, to dig in deeper, you have to do it yourself. I'm more than happy to provide you guys the clue where to start. To talk about ancient Egypt history, then we have to talk about like the most important thing that in Egypt. What is that? The Nile River. Yes, the Nile River. The Nile River, according to your social study teacher, said that it is the longest river in African continent. By this time, you should know which one is the Africa continent. Now, Egypt is located in the upper northeast of the continent of Africa. Without the Nile River, there would be no life. The Nile River brought life into this place. The Nile River brought life into Egypt. The Nile River brought life into the desert. As you can see from the satellite image, that the surrounding area of the Nile River is green, and then it is lushful, which is the plants and the trees can grow. However, few kilometers away from the Nile River, everything looks dry and barren. As you can see, there's no green in it, and then it's just desert. It's obvious then the Nile River become like the source of life and also source of water, the main source of water. It was being common to be understood that Egypt is the gift of the Nile River. To simplify how significant or how important the Nile River for Egypt is, think it this way. Egypt without Nile River is just like an ice cream without the ice cream itself. But then again, just like the dried, kind of like the dried wafer cone. Do you still call that thing ice cream? No, right? Same thing. Nile River, Egypt. Nile River, Egypt is something that is not separatable. It's just one. Several unique things about the Nile River. One, Nile River flooded twice a year. The fancy word for flooded is inundation. Yes, the Nile River inundation is twice a year, and then it's very predictable, and then it's very exactly predictable, which is every September and also every March. So, and then this is very important for the ancient Egyptians because why? Now the Egyptian, they can plan when is the best time for them to harvest. They can plan very well and exactly when is the time for them to start planting and when is the time for them to start harvest. Because if you are not following this pattern properly, then what will happen? Before your farm produce harvest, your farm will be completely flooded by the Nile River. That means that's it. It's a bad thing because you will not be able to harvest. Without harvest, you will go starving. Because of this predictable flood pattern, the river banks of the Nile River become a great farms, produce a lots of food compared to other civilization, produce more harvest compared to the other places in the world. For the Egyptians, because they have enough food, so they can spend most of their time and their energy to make something great, to build something great. They don't have to worry no more about food because food is something that is, well, yeah, relatively easy if you live by the Nile River. Another thing that unique about the Nile River. Now, in Egypt, it never rains. Interesting, isn't it? As it has a desert climate, it never rains. So the source of water is only from the Nile River. In fact, some letters when the Egyptians start to travel to different places, they describe it that the land that they visited is very weird and funny. Because why? The river comes from above, from the sky. So because the Egyptian never had a rain, they describe rain from the sky as a river coming down from the sky. The Nile River current flow from the south all the way to the north. Flow from the higher ground to the lower ground, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, from the south to the north. Now, the southern part of the Nile River known as the Upper Egypt, and then the northern part of the Nile River known as the Lower Egypt. Now, warning, do not get confused, okay? If you look at the map of the Nile River, yes, it seems to be the Lower Egypt is in the upper part. And then like the southern part of the Nile River, it seems to be in the lower. Do not get confused with that map. When I said Upper Egypt, that means the southern part of the Nile River. When I said Lower Egypt, it means the northern part of the Nile River, the one who near to the sea. Okay? Now, long time ago, before Egypt became Egypt, there were two kingdoms in Egypt. The Upper Egypt and also the Lower Egypt. Each were ruled by kings. And then these two kings, they have two different crowns. The Lower Egypt, they will have the red crown that looks like this with a peak on its back. It represents the Lower Egypt. And then the Upper Egypt king's crown, it's a conical head with the color white. We call it as the white crown. It's the symbol of the Upper Egypt. White crown and the red crown. It's a two different crown. And this Upper Egypt and the Lower Egypt, even though they are Egyptians, they don't get along and they had conflicts. I mean, they had wars. They don't like each other's. Until one day, there's this almost too legendary person, someone by the name of Narmer. Now, Narmer is become the first Egyptian who united the Upper and Lower Egypt. How did he unite Upper and Lower Egypt? Of course, through military prowess, through military conquests. Basically, he came from the Upper Egypt and then he conquered Lower Egypt and then he bullied everybody in Lower Egypt to become his. And because of that one, Narmer in the history recorded as the first pharaoh. Now, pharaoh is a unique title owned by the Egyptians. It means, well, literally it means the great house. Basically, pharaoh act as a shepherd. Pharaoh act as a god. Yes, king, human, a god. Yes, pharaoh as a god. Pharaoh is being treated as a god. The title pharaoh can be only given to those who ruled Upper and Lower Egypt at the same time. Now, Narmer, he combined the two crowns, the Upper Egypt crown and the Lower Egypt crown, the red crown and the white crown, and it looks like this. So, this is the crown of the pharaoh, Narmer. This is the crown of the unified Egypt. The combination between the red crown and the white crown. Being a pharaoh in Egypt, that means he has the ultimate power, he has the highest authority in Egypt. He acts as a god. And whatever he wants, everybody have to obey him. If he want McFlurry from Cars Jr., then so be it. It has to happen. Now, acting as a god, that means the pharaoh are expected to maintain orderliness. Orderliness, not just his people, but then again, orderliness of the nature. The pharaoh must make sure that the sun rise in the east and then set in the west every day. And the pharaoh was in charge of making sure that the Nile River always flows from the south to the north, not going backward, okay? And the pharaoh must make sure that everything that surrounds them, like the farming, the cycle, and also like the season, arriving in time. And if anything that is in nature does not happen properly, and the pharaoh will be to blame because he is the god, according to ancient Egyptian. The history about Narmer is being recorded in this kind of particular tool known as the Narmer's palette. So I found out that this palette is basically is to make a cosmetics. Yes, is to grind the cosmetics into a powder. And then through this palette, we can tell he was the first pharaoh. Now another myth about Narmer. Before he became the pharaoh, he was known to be a great hunter. There was a time that he was being chased by wild dogs as he was chasing for an animal. But somehow, to escape from these wild dogs, he jumped over into the Nile River that infested with a lot of Nile crocodiles. Oh, by the way, the Nile crocodiles, these are dangerous creatures. They don't mind to eat human. Narmer jumped over this Nile River, jumping over all of this alligator, and then he managed to go across from one side of the Nile River to the other side of the Nile River. And when it happens, a lot of people saw it, and he became famous because of that one. And maybe because of that feat, that is the reason why he was later on being chosen as the pharaoh for Egypt. We will talk more about Egypt in the future. Now, what do you like about Egypt? Please let me know next time we meet. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. God bless you guys all. Bye-bye.